Welcome back to the podcast, guys. Today we are joined by Darrell Seybold, the Senior Director of Sales and Partner Alliances at Bizmetric. Darrell, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Zach. I appreciate it.
So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and what do you guys do at Bizmetric?
Well, for starters, I'm a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, but I love AI as well. Oftentimes people tease me because the two are, people say AI is the devil. It's not the devil. It's a great tool for helping businesses get what they need out of their data. And that's what we do at Bizmetric, is we basically provide them with data-ready AI applications that help them move forward in their business in a more cost-effective manner. But he's, moving AI. It's the buzzword of the day. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong. Technology, I think, has always had some kind of buzzword. Used to be cloud, then it was machine learning. Now it's AI. AI has been around for a long time. It's just that now through generative AI and in large language models that have made it easier for, just everybody to use in their workplace, I think that's accelerated the motion considerably. And so now everybody wants AI. And I talk to people every day and they're getting lambasted by their C-level executives. What are we doing with AI? What are we doing with AI? When are we going to do something with AI? And, oftentimes they already are in some way, shape, or form. They just didn't realize it. So we've made it easy to get those AI wins under their belt. And then if they want to custom design something as well, that's a little more intricate and it's going to take more time, we can do that too.
Are there any specific trends inside of AI that you are observing in the data science and cloud migration industries that you are in?
So for migration, and that's the first piece, a lot of folks, because they didn't do their data right, are finding out the hard way that we can't even do AI, even if we want to, simply because our data is not structured properly. And so you're having to have that hard conversation with them about getting their data platform correctly and ready for AI use because, garbage in, garbage out. That's the general rule with data. So if you haven't maintained and kept your data clean, you're gonna have issues once you start to implement AI, because that's where it initially starts to learn and then continues to learn from, in addition to the prompting done by the user. So I often explain AI to people as a 4-year-old. You have to give it very specific instructions and detailed as to what you want it to do. Otherwise, it's going to bring you back the wrong thing. Most 4-year-olds are very smart. If you tell them specifically, I need a 16 millimeter wrench from the toolbox, it will say 16 millimeter on the handle. It's red, bring it to dad. They will bring you that wrench. However, if you just say, go give me a wrench, they're coming back with any old wrench and they're going to learn from that. And if you don't continue to instruct them right, just like AI, it will become an entitled teenager who basically disrespects you at every turn. So you don't want your AI turning into a disrespectful teenager. So you want the data, you want the prompting to be right. So that's kind of what we help companies do, is platform that data correctly. I would say the biggest trend is data acceleration. There are a couple of folks out there, we're one of them, that have our own intellectual property that helps Microsoft, AWS, various large cloud platform users to accelerate their data motion. The biggest barrier to entry for migration to the cloud is have all this data. Say you're Pepsi or Coke or whoever, you big company, you've been amassing data for a lot of years in your data center and you're just not getting what you need out of it. The cost to re-platform this across your own hardware is just insane. Tens of millions of dollars. And then that's only going to last you for a bit because the hardware is going to become obsolete the minute you put it in. That's just the way hardware works. So you want to get that data over to the cloud, but it's going to take you 18 months. That's huge. 18 months of your staff focused on one thing, and that's moving data while you're still accumulating data. These data accelerators that we've built literally take that data and move it in 18 weeks. So you're talking a quarter of the time it would ordinarily take you, a quarter of the cost it would ordinarily take you. Plus, when it gets there, it's already modernized. So as it's migrating the data, this accelerator will modernize, deduplicate, curate the data, all these things to eliminate or reduce pipeline drift. So once you start to attach your AI applications to the data when it gets into your lake house, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is very efficient data to use. And my AI is running very quickly and effectively. So data accelerators, far and away, biggest thing going in the cloud space. In regards to the AI piece itself, that's a little more spread because every company has a different challenge they're trying to overcome. Of course, if you're doing a lot of customer service and you're at the consumer layer, AI bots are just huge for your business. We have over 100 AI bots that are already developed, data ready. You plug them in, you program them with a couple of key features, and off and away they go, from voice recognition bots to customer service bots, you name it. Bots inside of agents. We've got, man, I quit trying to keep up literally on the amount of bots these guys are throwing out on a daily basis. I'm like, just point me to the menu. I'll go in there and find the bot. When a customer says, hey, I need this, I'll be like, we got a bot for that. Here you go. Boom. Let's try it out with your data. And you're talking 72 hours to being ready to go in a lot of cases. So that's a game changer for companies when you can do that in such a short time. And so
Right.
that's fun going through and just talking to customers, seeing what their challenges are. If they're manufacturing, it's a lot of testing type applications that they need for quality control and things of that nature. We do a lot of oil and gas, so health and safety is huge. We have, computer vision, movement recognition applications that will send off alerts when somebody walks into a zone that's authorized for human contact. And then, boom, here comes the health and safety police for that company and kick them out of the zone. So yeah, there's so many different things you can do. We just did a Databricks event for oil and gas down in Houston last week, and it was a half-day event, and we couldn't touch on near enough of the cases that are out there. And the customers were just like, hey, we don't know where to start because we have so many challenges we'd love to overcome. Tell us where to start. And, these are big oil and gas providers, the biggest in the industry, and they're as confused as the next guy. So if you're a smaller company, you don't know what to do with AI, don't feel bad. Neither does most of the major energy providers in our country.
What made you actually focus on developing these solutions at Bizmetric?
Customer demand. We're a very customer responsive in relationship driven organization. That's just how we've always been. And like I said, AI has been around a while. So you have some huge big box providers, as I call them, your Salesforces of the world, your Oracles, folks like that have huge AI offerings and platforms. ServiceNow is another one. These solutions for a mid to large size company are going to run, over $1 million a year just to get, the majority of function out of their AI platforming. What we found is most companies don't use 80% of that. So you're paying over $1 million a year to use maybe 25% of the AI solutioning within one of these big box platforms. We'll create one specific to your need because we're large enough to do anything a customer wants, but we're small and nimble enough to do it the way they need it. So they bring us, hey, this is what we need. We develop it for them very quickly, test it against their data, make sure it's running the way they want. We'll charge you 120 grand a year for that. Huge savings, much more efficient for what you're trying to do. And for the price of one platform you use 20% of, we'll give you, 8 to 10 specific solution applications for challenges you specifically want to overcome that are a problem within your workspace. So workflow agents, you name it, we can develop it for you.
If you could describe your ideal client, what makes them a perfect fit for like Bizmetric services?
The ideal client, I would say, is the federal government because they print their own money. They never run out of cash. But aside from the federal government, I would say that any customer with a challenge that they're trying to overcome, if they're a Databricks or a Microsoft user, they're going to have some financial advantages because we are approved for all of the funding programs within Databricks and Microsoft. So if you're wanting to get something done, Microsoft will literally give us money to help you do it. And that's because if you're cloud native for your data, they want you to tap into that. And, it generates more consumption for their compute engines, which is more money for Microsoft. So of course they're happy to help you get down your AI journey. There's nothing wrong with that. That's just Microsoft and Databricks being good partners. AWS does a little of that as well. Not as much because AWS will put hands on keyboards. But there's a downside to that because when AWS is doing everything for you, then the people in your organization aren't doing it for you. And so they're not learning, they're not growing. And probably the biggest hurdle to all of this, to the AI, to the machine learning, to the data platforming, to innovation as a whole across the industrial space is skilling. That's the biggest challenge, hands down. People can't keep up on the innovation as fast as it's happening. So whether it's healthcare, oil and gas, manufacturing, retail, doesn't matter. You're trying to run your business every day and stay on top of what's going on. And this is breaking. And how come people aren't buying it this way anymore? And at the same time, innovation's just flowing. All of a sudden, one day somebody asks you about AI, how come we haven't automated this process? You're like, didn't even know we could automate this process. News to me. They're like, well, why don't you know this? And it's like, because I've been working on this legacy system you gave me 4 years ago, and I'm trying to keep it running. Oh, bright guy, why don't you help me out with getting this innovation in my head? And so then I'll be happy to tool it. So that's where partners like us come in, and Microsoft giving us funding to come in and sit down with a department within an organization or the entire organization. It's really relative to the problem at hand. And then we will work with them to say, hey, this is the innovation you need for your space. What's going on right now? What competitors are also looking to implement that are in the space against you? And then, we help them overcome that.
And what strategies are you guys currently using to acquire these new clients?
Man, so some of them we don't even have to acquire because of what we do and
Inbound?
what we advertise. They come to us. We also have a great relationship with Microsoft sellers within their organization. So since they're a partner-led organization and generally don't put hands on keyboards, they bring business to us as well. We develop great relationships with them. Sellers at Databricks, it's the same thing. We're partner approved for their funding programs. And so their sellers will work with us. That's why we did the Databricks event that we just did. But, we're always looking to improve how we reach out to the market and how it responds to us as well. We're kind of famous for taking young sellers straight out of college and then teaching them how business really works. Because I don't know if you're familiar with our university system, but it's changed a lot over the last 20 to 30 years. So you kind of got to do the teaching as soon as they come out, because the teaching didn't happen where they were. For non-STEM degrees like sales. That's my job, is to work with these, these folks coming out of college and get them going into building relationships and helping people within their business challenges.
Darrell, what are your aspirations with Bizmetric in the upcoming months?
Oh, dude. Definitely to win the lotto and leave Bizmetric. That's my overall goal. I'm going to hit the lotto, take my millions, and be out of here. But until that happens, what I'd like to focus on is essentially getting relationship-driven relationships out there with folks who can help, with our branding, and we can help with their branding. That's really what the alliance piece of my job is to work with folks like Databricks, Microsoft, AWS, Oracle, and anybody else who's trying to partner in the data and AI space, so that we can, essentially help people run their businesses. That's the end of the day. The whole world thrives if businesses are thriving. Governments aren't going to save us. That's the realization. People can badmouth businesses and, capitalism is evil, this and that and the other. But guess where governments get their money? They get it through taxation on development and capital gains. And so you want people winning in business. Otherwise, they're just going to print money indiscriminately, and they're going to crash our economies, because that's what happens. We saw it through COVID. It's no secret to how economies work. So the best way for all of us around the world to prevent from that catastrophe happening, either in a more micro, just singular country format, or a global format, is for everybody to succeed in business. So if you're putting a product out there, Zach, whether it's t-shirts or whatever your idea happens to be, I want to help Zach make that a success. I want Zach to be successful. And that's the same for Coca-Cola, who's been around for years, or Pepsi. They got great soft drinks. I want them both to win. And I think that's a common misconception in business today. Bill Gates and the guy over at Apple, who everybody says is crazy, Steve Jobs. That's something that when Apple was going under, and Microsoft saved them, literally gave them $500 million to keep the company afloat. That's when they kind of showed the world that Microsoft doesn't have to lose for Apple to win, and vice versa. Apple doesn't have to lose for Microsoft to win. They can both win. Open source is created around that whole philosophy that we can all win. We just have to be willing to dialogue and work with each other, and understand that, a good negotiation is one that ends in a win-win scenario, not a win-lose scenario. And unfortunately, for so long, so much of business has operated under that precept of the win-lose negotiation versus that win-win. So, that's what we look to change. That's what we're constantly trying to do with the folks that we work with. Hopefully, by working with you and what you're doing here in your podcast, we'll get to touch more people and get that message out there.
Great. Well, thank you, Darrell, for this podcast. I will add links so people can check you out. And thank you guys for watching. We see you in the next one.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Zach.